Welcome to PRAJNA SPARKS, a podcast where we listen to a Dharma talk, contemplate with our minds and in our hearts, and engage in guided meditation. Every episode of PRAJNA SPARKS takes hours to plan, record, and edit. We ask that, if you haven't already, you give us some time today to like, subscribe, share, and review our podcast. Alongside your own practice, this is the best possible offering as it helps the Dharma reach new listeners.
What does trust have to do with the Buddhist path of practice? Trust, of course, a very loaded word or topic or experience for us in life, depending on our history and our background. So first, I'd like to just be clear on what we mean by trust. Semantically, trust means relying on something that we have confidence in, that we have a measure of assurance, is trustworthy, is reliable, something that we know we can place our confidence in, put ourselves in the care of, or under the custody of, and be safe. We entrust something when we place something in its care. We trust something if we do it without fear or misgiving. In other words, it's an experience of safety, of assurance in the truth of something, and of being cared for in a way that's meaningful. When we look at the etymology, we find that the word comes across pretty much the way it was used in the original Middle English, possibly Old Norse, which is trost, which now we pronounce as trust, akin to Old English true, the word true in our current language for faithful or in accord with reality. Also, as we've discussed in the context of the Four Truths, something that is fitting for its particular purpose, that has a form or mechanics that are accurate for the desired purpose to which we put it, like a wheel is true when it revolves in a circle without wobbling, or an arrow is true when it flies seamlessly through the air, and so forth. The word true, in turn, also has a shared root with the Sanskrit daru, or daruna, meaning hard or heartwood. This is especially interesting to me because there is a beautiful sutta in the Pali Canon called the Greater Discourse on the Simile of the Heartwood, which is very similar to what we'll talk about today. In that sutta, the Buddha talks about someone who is looking for the heartwood, the very center of a, say, cedar tree or oak tree, a hardwood tree, where the center is the sturdiest of the wood, very different from the bark or the softer layers of wood around it, which are valuable for their purposes, but would not be as useful, for example, in building a table or a chair, a piece of furniture that needs to be very sturdy, that is reliable in the sense that you could place something on it and know that it won't just collapse. And the Buddha in that sutta talks about how it's important, if we're looking for the heartwood, to set aside the bark, to set aside the other layers of wood, not because we're disparaging them, but because we have a particular purpose in mind. So we both recognize that these other layers have their value, so we're not heedless or reckless in ignoring that value, but we also recognize that they do not have value for the purposes of building this very strong bench or table or whatever it may be. So without either fixating on the thing as being something it's not, or being heedless of the value it has, we continue looking for the heartwood in the trunk of the tree. There's a similar process that happens in the path of practice. when we look at trust from a Buddhist standpoint, we want to examine first, what are we trusting right now? How do we place our trust, and in what? Do we find those things trustworthy or not? Ultimately, what is there that we can trust that actually is fit for the purpose of supporting the complete freedom from suffering and uninterrupted happiness that is the highest aspiration, spoken or not, of every single being? When we look at it that way, then we can see the path of practice as one of unfolding trust. First, recognizing that we might be placing our trust in the things of this life as ends in themselves. That is to say, we trust our car, our spouse, our house, our job, whatever it may be, to provide us with unending happiness free from suffering. But that never works, does it? Because in that sense, the things of this life are unreliable. Not a single one can provide unending happiness and freedom from suffering. And that's fine. Just like the bark of the tree, we don't disparage it. We also don't try to treat it like it's a source of genuine happiness and freedom from suffering. We interact with them, experience them, enjoy them, learn from them, whatever it may be, for what they are, and no more. It's not enough just to have the house, the spouse, the car, whatever it may be. These are temporary sources of pleasure and temporary relief from suffering. But we want more. In the Four Truths, the Buddha famously focuses on dukkha, usually translated as suffering, exhorting us to recognize dukkha to be dukkha, however it may feel, whether it's pleasing, unpleasing, or neither. We recognize that all samsaric experience is dukkha, meaning unsatisfying. It's either unpleasant, meaning painful, uncomfortable, icky in some way, in which case, obviously, it's unsatisfying. Or it may even be pleasurable, but it's unsatisfying in that we can't always get that pleasurable feeling. It doesn't continue indefinitely, and even as we're experiencing it, it's falling away. And we're always susceptible to that, aren't we? That's the samsaric state. Whether we're experiencing something pleasant or unpleasant, there's this underlying susceptibility to the next experience of dukkha. So why are we surprised? The Buddha is implicitly saying, recognize dukkha as dukkha because it's holding you back from experiencing your mind's true nature, which has among its properties sukha, the sweetness, bliss, goodness, ease, uninterrupted by any kind of dukkha. It also has loving kindness, compassion, wisdom, power, all of the excellent qualities in infinite abundance. This nature of mind, called the Buddha nature, is what, in the Mahamudra tradition of the Kagyu lineages of Tibetan Buddhism, is seen as both the cause that keeps us seeking for that genuine happiness free of suffering, and the result of the path of practice that allows that Buddha nature to manifest without impediment. The path of practice is simply the path of releasing all of the obscurations that prevent our experience of Buddha nature, as well as our ability to manifest that Buddha nature for all beings. What does that path have to do with trust? Well, if we begin with the sense of trusting the Buddha nature, then we realize that it's pointing us to releasing a sense of self-importance. And when we think about taking the things of this life to be the very purpose for our existence, there's a real self-importance there, isn't there? All of these things should line up so that it is pleasing to me so that I avoid any unpleasantness. That's a fairly self-centered approach to understanding the world. And of course, it's a self-defeating one as well, because no matter how much money or possessions, how beautiful a family, how wonderful our friends, things happen. Things are shaky. Everything is impermanent. Things don't always act the way we'd like, and we don't always see things the way they are. When we release a little bit of the self-importance that focuses only on the things of this life serving our aims for pleasure and lack of suffering, then we can start going past that, expanding, trusting our Buddha nature more, and recognizing, well, maybe there's more to life than just this amassing of stuff so that I can feel happy in the moment and guard myself against not feeling happy. Then we're going to a more panoramic perspective that's looking at the course of life after life as an ongoing development. In a way, you can say that turning from the things of this life as ends in themselves, which is the difference in Buddhist philosophy between being a worldly being, just simply caught in the samsaric cycle of misperception, and a spiritual being, developing the Buddha nature further and further to liberation and even Buddhahood. That movement is a revolution. It's a revolution in what we trust and how we place that trust. A revolution that leads into an evolution of trust in Buddha nature that channels our path to embodying Buddha nature without impediment. In other words, once we turn from the things of this life towards liberation and omniscience, we are turning towards a path of greater and greater trust in Buddha nature, which is accompanied by greater and greater transparency or actualization of that Buddha nature. For a Buddhist, this begins formally with the practice of refuge. Why is refuge a practice of trusting Buddha nature? It's our Buddha nature that is driving us to manifest our Buddha nature. When we trust in Buddha nature, we really want to be able to experience for ourselves and share with others the infinite stores of treasure that is Buddha nature. How do we do that? How do we take the actions needed to make that happen? The three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, are the outer reflections of our Buddha nature. If Buddha nature is the cause that drives us forward, the three jewels are the supports. We take refuge in them as a reminder, a mirroring, a trust in their outer forms to help us along the path of manifesting our own inward Buddha nature. When we start out that way, then absolutely everything we do in our path can be understood as practicing trust in Buddha nature. When we sit and meditate, it's because we trust that Buddha nature is fully present, requiring only the processing to make it manifest. Kind of like cream or butter is always present in milk, but it requires processing for it to become visible, tasteable, spreadable, etc. Then our days can become ways of trusting in that Buddha nature, believing in others even if their behavior is unruly and as far away from Buddha nature as we can imagine, not to mention our own. Taking pauses throughout our day to allow for moments of connecting with the meditative awareness that is always present, that is a continual, available reminder of our Buddha nature. Making offerings of our food at each meal, or beauty that we encounter, even our own pain and our kleshas, the emotions that disturb mind's natural tranquility, recognizing that in their nature, they are pure and part of our path to manifesting Buddha nature. Practices like Tonglen or the Lojong maxims, such as in our series, The 59 Days of Healing Dualistic Mind, are wonderful ways of bringing practice into everyday life. In this way, we can make each day a practice of beading a mala of practice, starting out with the string of Buddha nature and adding a bead at a time throughout the course of the day, through our formal practice, through our kindness, through our inward offering of beauty, through Tonglen, whatever it may be, until by the end of the day, we have a full mala of 108 beads of moments of practice. As we do this, we have a progressive release of self-importance as we ease into increasing trust in Buddha nature, so that we don't just give up the self-importance of seeing things only through the lens of what can it do for me, but we even stop thinking about future rebirths, which is an initial stage of Buddhist practice. We engage in ethical conduct now for a positive rebirth in the future. Even that has a measure of self-importance because you're still seeking something, a positive rebirth as opposed to fleeting pleasure in this life. And then further still, not just seeking liberation of samsara for our own sake, but recognizing that if we really are to complete our own benefit, we need to release the self-importance that limits our idea of self to just this body, this mind, this experience. So you could say, in a way that actually recognize the full, boundless extent of self to include all beings, that we are able to trust Buddha nature the most, releasing into a sense of our own power, wisdom, love, and so forth for our own sake and the sake of all beings. Manifesting that completely, perfectly, without impediment, is what is known as Buddhahood. It is embodying the true nature of our mind. How can anything less be anything but suffering? For your contemplation, try beading a mala of practice throughout the day. See how it goes.
This is Zopa and Yeshe for PRAJNA SPARKS. Be sure to join us every month on the new moon for fresh episodes. Stay tuned now for a guided meditation. Shivnee is our Tibetan singing bowl artist. Thanks for the generosity of giving us some time out of your day to like, subscribe, share, and review PRAJNA SPARKS. It really does help us to spread the gift of Dharma to new listeners. If you have any questions, contact us via email, Instagram, or Facebook. Check the episode notes for those links and for more resources on today's topic. Visit us on the web at prajnafire.com or follow us on Instagram and Facebook at PRAJNA SPARKS. Thank you for listening. May all beings benefit. Hello, friends. Welcome to our meditation, where we will be exploring trust. To begin with, take your seat, come into the present moment, allow yourself to settle, letting go of any distractions, whether they be external, internal, feelings, thoughts, what have you. Bring your awareness to this moment neither blocking thoughts, feelings, emotions, nor trying to get them to occur. Just allowing awareness of whatever is happening. We will do a few minutes of shamatha or tranquility meditation to ground ourselves. And for this practice today, we are going to use our physical sensation of our contact with the earth as the focal object of our one-pointed concentration, the focal object for our meditation. So whether you're standing, sitting, lying down, just take a moment to become aware of your physical contact with the floor or the cushion, the chair, ground, whatever it might be beneath you. Feeling that stability, that support that it provides moment to moment, and allow awareness to come to rest one-pointedly, new and fresh in each moment, as you pay attention to this tactile sensation of your body experiencing the contact with the ground, the earth beneath us. Should you find yourself getting distracted or falling into thoughts or feelings, just notice that, let it go, and bring mind, again, one-pointedly, back to the physical sensation of the contact with the earth below you. So let's practice like that for a couple minutes to ground and cultivate one-pointed awareness. Having begun our meditation in this way, cultivating one-pointed attention, now we're going to continue to engage with this alert, calm, relaxed, yet focused state of mind by turning our attention to trust. This is such a huge topic, and there's many different ways we could go about exploring this through meditative inquiry. For right now, let's bring our awareness to something in this life that feels trustworthy to us, that we know that we rely on. We might have a sense of it bringing us calm, grounding, meaning, happiness. These are all the different things that we trust and seek in people, places, relationships, activities, enjoyments. And for most of us, we've developed a routine of the things that we feel are trustworthy in this life, and that we keep going back to again and again to provide us with those sought-after qualities and experiences of pleasure, comfort, safety, and so forth. So for our meditative inquiry, choose one thing that you know you rely on. This could be a relationship, a friendship, a romantic partnership, a family relationship. It could be a pet. It could be a house that is your home. It could be a job. It could be a pursuit of excellence in your career. The possibilities are truly vast, and you know your own mind and proclivities best. So choose any one thing. And begin by asking yourself, why do I rely on this? Why do I rely on this? What is it about this particular thing that feels trustworthy to me? As we're engaging in this practice, bringing our discernment and insight to the things that we rely on, it's important to note that this initial piece of the exploration can call up feelings of groundlessness, of sadness, of being uncertain. So please keep taking care of yourself, but recognize that there is a purpose to cultivating this clear-sightedness of the things that we tend to rely on almost blindly or habitually. As we are looking at this one particular aspect of life that we tend to assume is trustworthy, now we're just going to investigate what is a way that this is actually untrustworthy. This relationship, this possession, this worldly pursuit, in what way is it untrustworthy? It may be untrustworthy because it takes repeated efforts to try to ensure that it keeps giving us the experience that we want. Untrustworthy in its reliability, in its impermanence, in the fact that at some point we are going to lose it. And then what? If you have a moment of clarity, insight, or sometimes even just that sense of heartbreak that starts to open up, recognizing how even the things of this life that we put so much effort into are not providing us with the lasting meaning and happiness and security that we are looking to them for. Rest one-pointedly in that clarity or in that heartbreak, as it may be, until it fades. So if this relationship or possession, pursuit, material thing that we've invested the idea and hope of meaning, security, happiness in is actually untrustworthy, what do we do? Does this mean we have to give it up completely? That's one way to go about it. Another way is simply to recognize that it is incapable of fulfilling that heartfelt yearning we have for definitive, lasting security, stability, well-being, happiness that we keep looking to it for. And recognizing its limitations, we can use it for what it does provide us while not getting befuddled by our misplaced hopes for it. Recognizing it as it is, we can stop investing as much meaning and pursuit, use of the resources of our life in making sure or trying to ensure that it lasts and provides us with something that it is incapable of doing. Furthermore, we can turn to that very yearning for definitive happiness and well-being that we experience, that we want for ourselves, and recognizing that this is our Buddha nature calling out to us to be realized, embodied, fulfilled. We can turn our meditative inquiry to look at and see for ourselves, is there anything other than realizing our true nature, the abundant, brilliant, wise, powerful nature of our heart mind that will suffice? Explore this question for yourself. Do I think, do I believe that there is anything other than realizing my true nature that will bring about happiness and well-being that I seek? Whatever insight or clarity you might find, rest one-pointedly in that until it fades, and then analyze again. Now please join me in gathering whatever goodness has come from this brief exploration of trust in our own experience, and share that goodness and seeds of well-being with all beings, that we may all turn towards what is genuinely meaningful, making good use of this precious life and time that we have. Thank you for your practice.